custodial adults with minor children. Priscilla Lentini will be here shortly, hopefully. She is the St. Elizabeth and Seton Housing Director. And Julie Bennett, the CEO and Executive Director of St. Vincent De Paul, is here. And they'll be talking to us about this new community service program called the Seton. So, really much fun.
Hi, everyone. Before I begin on the Seton program, I do want to say thank you to all of you for the financial support that you have given to St. Vincent de Paul in Madison for many years and this last year for your help with our food pantry. I want you to truly understand what a difference that makes. We are now serving between 25 and 2,800 households per month in our food pantry. And that is more than double what we were serving in 2021. So the effect of rising rent and food inflation and gas prices being high and utility bills being high means that people are running short on money for food, and your generosity is absolutely making a difference. So thank you for that. Give yourselves a round of applause, and if that cost me $1, I got $1 for you. All right, so the Seton program, I want to start just by telling you how we got there. So we're going to start by talking about homelessness. Homelessness, according to the federal definition, means you are living, sleeping outdoors or in a space unfit for human habitation. That might mean in your car, that might mean in a tent, but it is a space not meant for humans to sleep. If you are living in a motel, if you are sleeping on someone's couch, under the HUD definition, you are not homeless. We call that being doubled up. And in Madison, there are significantly more people who are doubled up than are homeless. We don't know how many because it's not a number that anyone counts. So it's really hard to know how many people are homeless, but there are two counting mechanisms in our community that help us get an idea. The first is a point in time count. On a single night, and actually it's more like a week, but on a single night in January, people who work in the Homeless Services Consortium go out into the community and try to count the number of homeless people in our community. In January of 2022, 701 people were identified as homeless in Madison. Importantly, regarding the Seton program, 30% of those people were families with children. Families with children sleeping in shelter or sleeping in a place unfit for human habitation. The other spot where we count is the Madison Public School District identifies homeless children within the school district. So in their count, 1,244 students, or about 4% of the student population, were identified as homeless. Now, Madison School District lumps together people who are homeless by the HUD definition and children who are doubled up. So about 75% of those kids are doubled up. Let me stop now and introduce my friend and colleague, Priscilla Lentini, who runs the Seton program, and she'll take over the next part.
I apologize for my lateness. I'm this Seton program director. I've been with St. Vincent de Paul for about 9 years. My background is in social work. I'm sorry, I ran here. My breath. Okay. Thank you, Julie, for the first part. So we know that not all. Oops, moved too far. We know that not all people who are in Madison are who are struggling are literally homeless. We also know that they are extremely rent burdened. So in Madison, about 50% of people who rent spend more than 30% of their income on their rent. We consider that rent burdened. About half of those spend more than 50% of their income on rent. So it's a huge, oh, thank you so much. And we know that all of these struggles with poverty have huge impacts on people's lives. Children are 20% more likely to repeat a grade if they're homeless at some point in their life. There's also highly increased episodes of adult depression and anxiety, and the effects of trauma on their lives continues. So the Seton House was started about 30 years ago. We helped women and women with children who were formerly homeless and living in the Seton House, the traditional transitional housing program. Although the Seton House did tremendous work on helping these families escape poverty and continue on their lives, we found that it was actually a burden for families living at the Seton House because they're no longer considered literally homeless. So they were excluded from the housing priority lists since they are no longer in immediate danger of housing. So in Madison, we have what's called Housing First. Sorry, my notes aren't on the screen, so I'm winging it a little bit.
You're good.
Okay. We work now with several different organizations in Madison. We've partnered up where we are now helping families who are formerly homeless now getting into housing through different organizations. So both Catholic Charities with the Beacon and Housing Navigation Services will place families who are homeless into housing, and then we help those families once they're in housing keep their housing. So a lot of services, when you are now in housing, those services go away because you're no longer considered endangered. So we are now helping those families stabilize in their house, and long-term housing stability is the goal. There's two different main ones that we're focused with. YWCA is helping families who are in doubled up situations. They're partnering with the school district, helping families in those doubled up situations get into housing. And then they'll refer those families to us at the Seton Program. And we'll partner with those families to keep them housed. We have other partners as well, but those are the two biggest ones. So the Seton Program is a single custodial adult, parent, grandparent with minor child. We provide case management support to set and achieve goals. So these are client-centered goals that they help themselves focus on setting those goals and then achieving those goals themselves. And it's a holistic approach. So we're not just helping families with just transportation or just childcare or just education. It's whatever those families' goals are. So we help support the family in a holistic approach. We expect that we'll help these families for about 2 years, but it's not time limited. We know that every family is different and every struggles are different. So it might be less than 2 years, it might be more. And we have a goal of helping 20 families by the end of the year. We currently are having 6 in the program. There we go.
So Priscilla has described how we got here in terms of looking at this program and how it solves a need in our community immediately. Yeah, we're going to leave that up for now. It's a little bit hard to see, but what I want to point to is this is a floor plan of space that we are building right now. So who's traveled down in the Willie Street neighborhood recently? We got a big hole in the ground. So about 85 years ago, we bought a store. No, yeah, that's probably right. 85 years ago, we bought a store down on Baldwin Street. And that was in 1941. In 1954, we added to that space on Willie Street. So it kind of sits on a corner and wraps around the corner. And we continue to add property to that store over time to enlarge it. We also purchased the house on the corner, which was the office space for Priscilla. And the upper floor of that house, building housed 3 women who were leaving corrections for up to 60 days while they got into housing. So a couple of years ago, we learned that the Baldwin part of the store had some bad roof trusses. And Priscilla knew well that the Seton House office needed some work. And ultimately, we made the decision to take down those properties and rebuild in the footprint. So if you look at what's going on down on Williamson and Baldwin, the store will continue to wrap around the corner. The first floor will be all retail with the exception of an elevator lobby to get to the second floor. The second floor will be only on the corner. It's about 3,000 square feet, and this is the floor plan. So this will be office space for Priscilla. But additionally, the large room that you see at the top left, we're calling that flex space. That flex space is really educational space so that we can offer educational programming to people in this program. So things like financial literacy classes or parenting education classes. I have this vision in my head that we could offer driver's ed classes because so many people who are struggling with poverty never get their driver's license, and that impedes their ability to insure their car, right? So these are ways to look forward about the steps that you can take to help people thrive within their families. So lots of opportunities for that flex space. Right below the flex space is a playroom. If you want adults to learn, you have to give them opportunities for their kids to be in a safe space. So we're envisioning that playroom to be for kids up to about 7 or 8 years old. And then we're incorporating into the flex space, learning space for older kids, like little study carrels, where they can do some homework or play a game or, be well occupied while their parents are learning. As next to the playroom, that little space is a kitchenette. If you feed them, they will come. Right? We want to offer opportunities for people to have a quick meal because if they're coming to something after work and they've got kids, you can't do it all. As a single adult, it's already so hard to do everything you need to do. So if we can offer a meal and maybe even some take-home food, it just makes it easier for that parent. Below that, there are 3 offices. One of those will be for Priscilla. We do intend to grow this program over time, but we also know that there's probably some work from home opportunities and Priscilla in her role. And as we add additional case managers, we'll also be spending time meeting the program participants in their homes. So we'll have some flexibility there, but we have interest from Catholic Charities. One of our partners in this program, they're interested in bringing mental health care back to Madison and collaborating on some office space where we could actually offer mental health care appointments in this space for program participants. So that's what you see going on along the bottom. On the right side, that's the reception area, bathrooms, all that space that you have to have. And then the bottom right corner, which would look out over the corner of Williamson and Baldwin, that's another smaller flex space. So just a little, maybe some quiet space for someone or a couple of people who just want to go have a conversation. Maybe it's a place where a mom needs to settle down a child who, doesn't want to be in the play space, just really adding a little bit of flexibility. So this is the space that we are building right now for this program. We're looking at that opening in the fall of 2024. But as Priscilla said, we hope to be serving up to 20 families by the end of this year, looking at that growing fairly quickly over the next year. And the magic number 20 has to do with a good standard of the number of families that an individual caseworker can support. So if the program grows faster than that, we will hire additional support because we believe so strongly in this program. One of the things that Priscilla also talked about was that there is financial support attached to this program. So if you have moved into housing from homelessness or being doubled up, you are almost certainly in that category of paying more than half of your income in rent. Now, that's not a big income. If you're qualifying for these services, that's a small income with more than half of it tied to rent. That means you're, by definition, going to have trouble covering your expenses, and your ability to cover an unexpected expense is non-existent. It sends people back into homelessness because they get on that path of falling further and further behind. So we have attached financial support to this program, as Priscilla described, with regard to what that parent sees as the need for their families. So that may be application fees for childcare. It may be a car repair bill. It may be mental health care. There's lots of things. We can do that because we are self-funding this program. We are not asking for government funds to do this because government funds don't let you do that. They tend to come with restrictions that you may use it for this thing, and we're thinking that it's more important to allow the program participants to drive that decision making. So it doesn't mean we can fund everything. That will be part of the responsibility of Priscilla, and as we grow our other case managers, to put some structure around that. But the goal is to trust people and help them grow in their ability to manage funds, but to trust people to make good decisions with their money, because they do. They don't make perfect decisions with their money. None of us do. But the problem with poverty is you don't have enough money. The solution to that problem is money. And so we're putting money behind this to recognize that it takes a little bit of time to be able to be financially stable enough that you don't need this kind of ongoing support. It's a different way than is typically the approach by helping people get from homelessness to stability. But the trauma that comes with homelessness, the trauma of being doubled up, somebody has been good enough to let you sleep on their couch for however long that may be, but you're always afraid of what comes next. What if the landlord finds out? What if my friend or my aunt gets mad at me? You're on the edge of not knowing where you're going to be next. To expect somebody to move into housing, get a job, go to work successfully, and not have to revisit any of that trauma is just an unrealistic expectation. And so that is the purpose behind not time limiting this program. Anybody got questions? Yeah.
How is the community responding to this? Are they supportive? Are they just ignoring it? It's just one other commercial storefront on the ground floor? Or what do you find in the local community?
So the local community doesn't really know about this yet. So we are in the quiet phase of a capital campaign for this second floor space. Historically, we do not ask the community to support us financially to build our stores or to remodel our stores. The stores are expected to pay for themselves out of the operations. So the capital campaign is for the second floor space, the furnishings, and 3 years of operations. And we're about 80% to our goal. We are hoping to wrap up the capital campaign by the end of the summer with no public phase. So it has been, the community has been generous to help us get started with that. I think when we start talking about this program, when we start telling the stories of the people that we're helping, we will see an outpouring of support, much as we have seen an outpouring of support from the community for our food pantry, for our charitable pharmacy, for the Seton House as it existed as a housing program. I have every expectation that the community will continue to be supportive.
First of all, as a former neighbor of yours who used to live right around the corner on Jennifer Street. I've always liked the store, and hearing all this work that you're doing and things like that makes me happier that I have patronized you so often. But I noticed a change in the language. When you first started talking about Seton House, you talked about women, single mothers and things like that. And then later on, the language changed to parents with children.
Mhm.
Is that a recognition of there's a need for single fathers as well and other type things?
It is. So if you want the really wordy way that we say single custodial adult with minor children. So that can be mom, that can be dad, that can be grandparent, that can be the older sibling, you know, auntie or uncle, recognizing that there are many family forms that are not recognized by many programs. There are many programs for single moms. But there's almost nothing for single dads. And so as we were designing this program, we had the opportunity to survey a significant number of the people served by St. Vincent de Paul to ask them if they were to have a program, what would they want? And we had the opportunity to follow up those surveys with some focus groups to go a little bit deeper. And that's one of the things that came out was there are more single adult headed households than you really realize. And we do know that most of these households will be single moms, but we wanted to make room for other types of households.
Just curious, background of the police officer leading to a lot of people are well intentioned children and wondering if the mandatory reporters, if the caseworker will be mandatory reporters in terms of making sure that the children have a voice in it, and then how will you work with the school?
Yeah. So as a social worker, I'm a mandatory reporter already. I'm also a foster parent, so I'm doubly mandatory reporter. And also all the caseworkers will be mandatory reporters as well. As far as the school, we have a great partnership with the TEP program and a lot of crossover with students and helping them get to school, helping them stay at school. Yeah, a lot of crossover.
Regarding the school district, one of the things that we really see with this program is by stabilizing a family in housing, and our hope is that they will be able to stay in that housing, in that same space for a number of years, is that it stabilizes the child in school, helps build those peer relationships, helps them learn to trust their teachers, helps them not sort of get left behind in that you change school and maybe this school didn't teach things in the same order that this school, so you never learned something. All of those experiences of kids changing school frequently come with their own set of hardships. And so, this is one of the things that we hope to see real strides for kids, just having that school stability. You have a question?
I know that St. Vincent benefits from volunteer service. What does the Seton program utilize volunteers as well? And if so, in what ways?
So that's kind of a to be determined question as we grow over time. So one of the things you may not know about St. Vincent de Paul is we are a member organization. We have about 400 members in Dane County at local Catholic churches. We are the largest lay Catholic organization in the world with about 800,000 members worldwide. When people call for help, they get connected with members from a church in their area. Those members go visit them in their home and see what kind of service they can provide. So often that's helping pay rent or a utility bill, but directing them to our food pantry or our pharmacy, helping people connect to resources. This is a long answer. We expect that we will start with volunteers in the program with our members, learn how volunteer support helps these families. I have a sort of vision in my head of a couple of members, and they always go by two, But a couple of members being willing to meet a mom at the park so that she just has a couple of grown-ups to talk to while her kids play. I don't see us doing things like providing childcare because of the liability attached to it, but maybe just grow in that friendship, give a parent a couple other people that they just know are on their team. Anything like that would be at the request of a program participant. We will not impose that on anyone. Did that answer your question?
Where do you find the housing?
So Catholic Charities and YWCA find the housing. So Catholic Charities has the housing navigation program for helping people from homelessness into housing. YWCA has a similar program for those who are doubled up. So they help them get into housing and then they offer them the opportunity to be referred into this program.
We might provide some monetary support in that transition period with like first month's rent, security deposit in order to, make sure they get the housing. But you might not know this, but finding housing in Madison is extremely difficult. So if I were to do finding housing and case management support, I'd be finding housing for like 2 people, 3 people instead of 20 people. So we're letting the other organizations that specialize in it take over that and take it on. And then we're gonna step in the back road.
One other thing about getting people into housing that I don't know if you're aware of. So we have 7 stores in Dane County, and the stores serve 3 primary functions for us. The first is they provide revenue for us to do the mission work that we do. So they bring in, we do about $3.5 million worth of direct charity in Dane County every year. The stores bring in about half of that money. Secondly, the stores provide good entry-level jobs in the community. And we banned the box years ago for people who have been incarcerated. So it's removed a barrier for folks who have a hard time getting a job. Piece number 3 on that is we voucher about $500,000 worth of goods from those 7 stores in the form of furniture, clothing, and household goods every year. So when people are moving into these new apartments, we will fill them with furniture and pots and pans and dishes and the basics that you need to get started, so that even it's expensive to move. And it's not just security deposit and first month's rent, it's that you need, flour and butter and ketchup too, and all of those things that you have to go to the grocery. So that is part of helping people get stable in their housing.
I'm glad you brought up that point because after living in my home for 50 years, I probably ended up giving your organization, not Goodwill, probably over several $1,000s worth of stuff because I had to get rid of it because my mover said I had to get rid of it. So I appreciate that comment and want you to share. We used to have a member from that organization. And we had a tour of the facility. And they expressed the fact that they have a pharmacy, which of course Goodwill doesn't. That persuaded me to say everything goes to your organization. Thank you.
All right, so shameless plug, free home pickups. If you have things that you want to get rid of, we will come and take them from you. So you can do that through our website. Do I owe you another $1?
It's all about you.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
My question is, I love the way you kind of problem solve and develop a program like all together. I'm sort of interested in your business model because it seems like you're being extremely responsive to who your clientele are. And it's not always possible in a big organization like that, especially if you have members who have opinions, who are saying you should do it this way. But from the 2 of you, I'm getting the sense that you just listen to your people, figure out where you might want to go, look at your community, see how much they'll support. And can you speak at all to that kind
Yeah,
of
sure.
development?
Yeah, so it wasn't a short process. It was a very long process. And one of the things that we found is that we wanted to make sure that this was a program-centered design process. We knew we had building problems, but we weren't gonna build something that didn't fit for a program. We wanted the program to be the focus. And so we go to the clients first, you know, to do the interviews and the surveys and the focus groups. And what we found is that they didn't need just one thing, they needed everything. There wasn't one issue that they needed help with. It was every issue they needed help with. And so that made us step back and say, okay, well, it's transportation, it's education, it's childcare. There's so many different aspects of people's lives that really needs focus. And so that, oh, well, you know, every family is different. So that makes sense. So we really had to take a step back to make sure that we're designing a program that will fit each individual client's needs. And that goes all the way back down to the individual person. And Julie did an interview with the Catholic Charities CEO and found that they were getting people into housing and that was it. They were losing contact with people and they, you know, needed to make sure that they were still in housing for their grants and they couldn't find them again. They would lose contact with them. It's like, oh, well, this is a great opportunity for us. And that's kind of how it was over the course of several years, how we came up with the idea of the Seton program to be individual case management services for formerly homeless families.
And all due credit to Priscilla here, who has been the chief designer of this program. Priscilla is part of the doubled up work group through the Homeless Services Consortium. So she's really tapped into people providing service to people who are struggling. And, you know, we talked about how we had the opportunity to talk with people that we serve, but Priscilla also made 40 bazillion phone calls to the people who are doing this work to hear their perspectives as well. And I think one of the things that was interesting to all of us is that the needs from case managers and people working with struggling families and the needs of the struggling families themselves were very similar, but they were ordered very differently. Our caseworkers would have prioritized things like childcare and furthering their education, and our families would prioritize transportation and feeding their kids, you know, those immediate needs. So being able to hear both of those perspectives and balancing them accordingly, I think has helped us, as Priscilla said, really understand that the people that we're serving know what their needs are, and we can trust them to tell us what their needs are and help us problem solve together for something that will work for them long term.
Talking about problem solving, how do you work around a young mother, a young father who's got, you know, kids that are 15, 20 years old, not in school, and it can't really work because they don't have daycare. And daycare is really unaffordable.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a huge issue, especially with COVID happening, where there was a lot of you know, the classroom sizes got smaller. You know, there was I don't know if you just saw, I think it was last night, a lot of funding in Wisconsin for childcare is going to go away. So that's going to be a big issue for people who rely on subsidies, childcare subsidies. And there's a couple organizations in Madison that help with childcare for families who are deeply impoverished, but there's usually wait lists. So it's an issue, and it's a ginormous issue, and it's it's still an issue. It's big. It's really, really big. There's not enough childcare.
I think additionally, there's not enough childcare in the places and at the times when people need it.
Yeah.
Especially if you lack transportation. It is really hard to be poor. I don't know if you've ever imagined what it would be like to have a 2-year-old child and not have a car. But if you have to take the bus to work, that means your childcare has to be either next door to where you live or next door to where you work, because you don't have enough time to make a transfer. So your